So today we're going to talk about factoring. So you all have your factoring worksheet, and you should notice that at the top we have all our steps to factor a polynomial. So the first thing you always want to check is, are there any common factors? Then how many terms are left? 2 terms. Then it must be a special polynomial. It's going to be a binomial. 2 terms, binomial. And these are the only 3 options we have to factor a binomial, other than greatest common factor. And then if we have 3 terms, we can notice, is it a perfect square trinomial? If we don't see that, then we can just use trial and error or the grouping method. Alright, so let's try a few. How about number 2? Alright, so basically, since the coefficient on the x squared is 1, we know this is going to have to be an x and an x as the first terms in each binomial. So now what we want is, what 2 numbers multiply to positive 16 that add up to negative 10? So I need 2 factors of 16 that when I add them, I get negative 10. And if you think about that, that should be minus 2 and minus 8. Oops. So that's what we get here, minus 2, minus 8, and we're done. Okay, what about one like, let's see, how about number 5? Alright, well, similarly, since it's 1x squared, we know it's going to factor to have an x and an x as the first term in each binomial. And then what 2 numbers multiply to positive 9 that add up to negative 6? Negative 3, negative 3. Now here you notice it's the same thing for each factor. So what we can do is we can write that as x minus 3 quantity squared. Alright, let's try another one. Maybe something a little harder. Maybe something like 14. Notice here we have 4 terms. So what we do is we're going to group the first 2 and the second 2 together. And what we do is we look for a greatest common factor within the first 2. So if you think that's going to be 3, so we factor a 3 out. So we're left with 3 times y minus 7. Alright, then plus. Alright, what's the common factor here in the next 2? We have x times y minus 7 times x. So x is going to be that common factor. So we pull an x out, and we're going to be left with y minus 7. Now what you should notice is, for the grouping method to work, these 2 factors have to be the same. So what we do is we can remove that, and we'll be left with y minus 7, and then we put the 3 and the x together, times 3 plus x. Okay, great. Let's see, what about 15? Let's try 15. Well, that one only has 3 terms. There's no greatest common factor. We begin with x and x. What 2 numbers multiply to negative 16 that add up to positive 6? That would be positive 8 and negative 2. And we're done. Put that on the answer line. Let's see, what about some others? What about one like this? How about 11? Alright, remember, what's step 1? GCF. Well, you should notice I can pull a 2 out of both of these. So we're going to get 2 times x squared minus 49. Alright, well, since I have 2 terms left, it has to be one of those special forms. And if you notice, x squared is a perfect square and 49 is a perfect square. So this is going to factor to x plus 7 times x minus 7. And then we're done. All those are prime now. So 2 times x plus 7 times x minus 7. Alright, what about... Alright, what about one like 20? Alright, here this one's a little more difficult. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the AC method. So what the AC method says is, take your A coefficient, take your C coefficient from the ax squared plus bx plus c model, and you're going to multiply them. So we get 8 times negative 5 equals negative 40. Now what 2 numbers multiply to negative 40 that add up to positive 6? Well, that's going to be plus 10, and minus 4. So what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite the 6ab as 10ab plus a negative 4ab. So this is going to become 8a squared plus 10ab plus negative 4ab minus 5b squared. Alright, now you always want to write it like this because we're going to group, and you always need a plus between the grouping symbols. Okay, so when we look at this, what can be factored out? I can pull a 2a out. So 2a leaves me with 4a plus 5b. And then here in the second 2, I can pull out what? I need to pull out a minus b. That leaves me with 4a plus 5b. That's exactly what we want. We have the same factors here. So we're left with 4a plus 5b times 2a minus b. And that's it. Alright, what about number 26? First thing I want to do is I want to rewrite this because it's not in a good order. So we're going to write it as a squared plus a minus 3. Now what we want is, well, we know that the a is going to have to come first. But then to get these two, what two numbers multiply to negative 3 that add up to positive 1? I don't think there are any. So in that case, when I can't factor this any further, this thing's going to become prime. That's the appropriate terminology. Just like 3 is a prime number because its only factors are 1 in itself, this is a prime polynomial because its factors are only 1 in itself. Okay? What about okay, how about this one? Number 43. All right, always remember your first step in factoring is to pull out a greatest common factor. Here, I can pull out an a squared and a 2. So let's pull out 2a squared. Well, what remains? 3a plus 5. Okay, and then we look at what remains in the parentheses. You should be able to see that that will not factor further. So that's it. We're just left with 2a squared times 3a plus 5. And that's it. Alright, so you guys go ahead and try the rest, and I'll see you in class tomorrow.